Never say that God doesn't have a sense of humor. It may not be laugh out loud funny, but I'm sure the people involved in this story wondered, what kind of joke is this? The Jewish people were slaves in the land of Egypt. God sent Moses to deliver them out of slavery to bring them to a new land flowing with milk and honey. It took some convincing for Pharaoh to let them go, but it also convinced the Jews that this was the real deal and they should follow Moses to this new land. It took about 2 years to travel a distance that could have taken a few weeks, but the time finally arrived. They sent out spies to go into the land to report on it, and they did. And yes, the land was certainly a land of milk and honey, but it was already taken. What were they thinking? That there could be such a land that nobody knew about? And then, not only that, these people were giants. No, not all of them, but there were several races of giants at the time. And their cities were all well fortified. The spies felt like grasshoppers in their sight. 2 out of the 12 spies disagreed. They said that with God's help, surely they could overcome and conquer the land. This story has made me suspicious of committees and taking votes ever since. It took 2 years for them to reach the promised land because God wanted them to learn his laws and statutes before they got there. He also wanted them to see his care for them and to learn to be comfortable with him. So the people were now faced with a choice. The land was every bit as good as promised, but taking it looked impossible. I have to say this reminds me of those people who say we should have to trust the scientists. The scientists would have said here that they could not take the land. It was physically and militarily impossible. Science does not and cannot figure God into his calculations. And this is the most basic concept of the Christian life, faith. Faith in God that he would do what he said he would do. We believe that he will save us by believing in Christ, but we have no outside circumstances that might make this seem unrealistic or untrue. But sometimes those unrealistic, impossible circumstances appear, and we have to decide what to do with them. Peter could walk on water for a brief time until he looked more at the wind and the waves than at Jesus who told him to come. Elisha's servant was afraid when they were surrounded by an enemy army until his eyes were opened to the forces of God that were around them. So what would you have done? 10 spies said that they could not take the land. 2 said they could. They had seen God take care of them for 2 years now, daily providing their food. They saw all the fire and fury in Mount Sinai when God appeared to them to give them his laws. They saw his pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke that led them everywhere they went. But they were afraid and said they can't do this. We were better off in Egypt. We shouldn't have left. And God said to them, you won't enter this land, but your children will. You will spend the rest of your lives wandering in this wilderness. I titled this lesson, All God's Promised Lands Have Giants. At some point in your Christian life, you will face circumstances that will look impossible, and you will have to make a choice, and that choice will affect the rest of your life. In this case, there was no second chance, but that was a nation and not an individual. It's harder to change a nation than a person. I made choices years ago that I wasn't sure I would ever get out from under. I still don't know. Many Christians are content to live ho-hum Christian lives. They may never even see a situation like this or wouldn't know it if they did. After all, David was the only one out of the entire Israelite army who dared to face Goliath. I'm guessing the odds wouldn't be much different today.